Welcome to Session Sunday. Hi guys, it's Jack Edwards and today's session is focusing on passing combinations. But before we get into this week's video, make sure to give us a like and subscribe, and if you missed last week's video, click on the link above. Okay, so moving into the first part of this week's session, we're going to be looking at a passing sequence, so we're focusing on a lot on our movement now towards the ball, okay, in time in our run. But before we get into it, let's have a look at how many players we've got this week, the setup and what equipment we're using. So we've got 10 players for the session this week, but if you have more or less players, it's easily adaptable. In terms of the equipment, mainly we're focusing on this week is just balls, bibs, cones, and then poles if you have them to use instead of cones. Also, if you have mannequins, if you don't have poles, they can just be an easy replacement instead of using the poles. In terms of the setup for this part of the session, we're going to have a 10-yard gap between the cones here and the pole or mannequin in the middle, and then another 10-yard gap in between the pole and the mannequin in the middle here, and then a further 10 yards. So we've got 30 yards of depth, and then the same with the width as well. So what we're looking at here is we're looking at our movement to receive, okay, to receive on the back foot, and then play out, okay, to another side, and then we're going to follow our pass, and the player who passed the ball in will then look to get their movement, okay, to where the first player passed the ball. So on the outside, we're going to have two players on each start point, and then we're going to have two players starting in the middle. If you have more players, you can obviously start with maybe 4 players in the middle, okay, and have 4 balls going at once, but we're just going to have 2 balls to start with, so there's going to be one at either end here. So the player's going to start, okay, with the ball here, then we're going to have a player moving out, okay, to receive on the back foot, to then play out to the right. Okay, so they're moving out this way instead of moving out, because we're not going to move this side to receive and play that way. We're opening out, okay, so we can see where the ball's coming from, where we're going to play to. So it's simple just to pass in, receive on the back foot, take it across, play into the next side. Okay, so this player will have done the same. Then this player is going to follow their pass. As soon as the pass has been played in, okay, this player is going to make their movement up, okay, and then they're going to get in to the pole or the mannequin here, get behind it, okay. So then once this player has received the ball from the player in here, okay, we're then looking for them to take a touch, so then that cues the movement for this player to get out again, okay, to play in and then playing out to the other side. Okay, so it's just a constant sequence, moving the ball to the right each time, so the 2 balls are going at the same time, which would then mean that this player will have gone to the back of this cue, and then you obviously got this player in here, we'd have this player in here receiving from there, so then they'll open out, okay, and then play to the right, so then they'd follow their pass, this player would follow their pass, and then you've got the next player coming in here to then get themselves in, okay, to then open out, okay, creating that space away from the defender, taking a nice first touch across and playing through to the next side, and obviously again we're timing them runs in, so as soon as we play that pass in, can we get into the middle zone, okay, time our run behind the player who's playing the ball, and as soon as the player in here has received it, can we look to open out and play. So we can adapt this, okay, by then going the opposite way. So we can start by receiving on the opposite side to play out to our left, okay, so then it's opening out this way and playing out out there instead. And then another progression is doing a 1-2. Okay, so instead of just receiving and playing out, so the players will then start up the opposite side, okay, so now they're going to be going out this way, okay, to receive, playing it back in, okay, and then getting themselves across to the other side, so they've created space, and then they're looking to play through. Okay, so what we're looking at here is a nice sharp movement to get towards the ball, okay, play it back, then to move quickly to get away from the defender, to create that space, to then open out and play through. Okay, so we're looking at a few different passes then, so we've got focusing on that first touch then, executing the passes quickly, okay, and then that movement to move on to the ball and play quick, and then obviously we've got our next player coming in here, so then they'll come in there, okay, they'll go out this way, okay, play back, get themselves around, okay, and then it's going to be an open and out and playing to the other side. Okay, so it's nice, quick, sharp movements, nice, quick, sharp passes, and then following the pass. We will now move into our first animation before moving on to part 2 of this week's session. Now moving into part 2 of this week's session, we're now moving into a bigger sequence, okay, with focusing on a lot of 1-2s and then movement, okay, towards and away from the ball. So we've still got our 10 players, okay, we've got 4 players split up on this 2 start points because we're going to have 2 balls going at the same time. If you're working with an age group, maybe a bit younger players or an ability level where 2 balls going at once might be quite difficult at the start, try and just go with 1 until they can build the intensity, the tempo and the speed up where you can then get 2 balls in, okay, so you don't have to rush it. And so what the play is going to start is right here on the middle, each side. So we're going to play into the middle, okay, so this player is going to create some space, okay, out wide here, and then we're going to play back across, okay, for this player to move onto the ball, okay, and then we're going to play wide. The wide player then is going to play back into the player in the middle, who's then going to play our wide player, okay, who's going to come short to receive and then spin out, okay, so as soon as this ball has travelled from the middle player out wide, so as if it's like the fullback or a wide central midfielder, as soon as that ball's coming in here, okay, so as soon as this player's touched the ball, get themselves in, so then when this player gets it, it could be a first time pass in behind, or it could be they take a touch, then it's spinning out and receiving in space and passing the ball to the next cue. Okay, so the players are just going to move up 1 each time. So what we'll find here is that the player who received it last, okay, will go to the back of the queue. The fullback here, or the wide centre midfielder, will move up 1. The central midfielder will move across, and then the player at the start will move up 1. And then obviously they'll have 2 players at the end points because this group will have done the same. So it's playing in this side, okay, and playing back. So we're focusing on that movement, not just being static and standing still, okay? That's what separates the good players from the better from other players. It's in terms of, you could just stand still on the pole or the cone, okay? It's unrealistic. When you played that ball, get yourself out so then you can make that movement onto the ball to play in with pace. Okay, so we're playing in again, playing back through, okay, for this movement, in and around, okay, to then play through to the opposite side. So then obviously we're moving up, moving across, and moving up again. So we've got 2 at the start point at each time. How we're going to progress it, okay, we're going to then have a 3rd man run from this wide player here. So this time we're going to play in, okay, to the player in the middle, okay, who's going to open out, okay, and play to the fullback, or again the wide central midfielder, who's then going to open out and play into the winger here. Okay, as soon as they've made that, they're going to start to make their run, because then the winger's going to play back into the central midfielder and try and come short to create space for then that fullback to make that run in behind to receive on the run and play in there. Okay, so then what we'll find the movement is the winger will move up, okay, and be the fullback. The central midfielder will make that diagonal switch across. The fullback who was on the run, or again, the wide central midfielder, okay, will go to the back of the queue, and the player who started will move into the middle. Okay, so what we're looking at here is we're playing in, okay, opening out to play across, okay, and then the fullback's then instantly going to look to play forward, okay, and then where can the support run be? So we're going to play the ball back, but then create some space for that running behind, okay, for our central midfielder to move onto the ball, punch the pass in front, and then we get to the other side. Okay, so then it's just simple. It's a move up, and then it's a follow of the pass, and then again to follow the pass here as well. Okay, so the most important thing to remember is to move that ball quickly. Okay, that body position to receive the ball. Okay, being aware of the space and where the ball is. Okay, so not being too close to the pole. Treat it as a defender. Okay, so get away from it. Okay, so create space to then open out and play, and also again not being in there too early. Okay, so this player in here, we don't want them waiting in here for the movements to help the fullback. It's getting in and getting out as quick as we can. So making it as much game realistic as we can. We will now move into our next animation before moving on to this week's 4-corner model. Now taking a look at this week's 4-corner model, starting off with technical and tactical, we're focusing on our execution of our passes. Okay, so making sure that the passes are getting to feet, okay, or getting just in front of the players. So if we're getting a player on the run, okay, we just want to play the pass just in front, or if we're playing to feet, obviously we want that to be able to enable the next player to either play first time or take a good first touch in front. So nice firm passes, okay, really punching the passes in, okay, so making sure, we're focusing on the ball. Our technique's good, okay, we're taking our time with our passes, not rushing it, okay, because in a game, if we don't look after the ball, then we'll easily lose it. Then we're looking at our movement to receive the ball, so then if we're in a wide position and we're trying to come short, it's can we do some double movements, okay, so can we go further away to then come in, so treating it as if we're trying to lose a defender to create some space. if we're standing on a pole or on a mannequin, okay, moving out a few yards, so then we know that we can take a nice first touch across our body to then follow on and then really try and play the pass in like nice and firm, like we're saying, and punch the ball in to the next player. Looking at our first touch then, so when we're receiving the ball, we don't want that first touch being stuck under our feet, okay? We're trying to make it just go away from the body so we can move on to the ball, okay? So we're getting that speed, we're getting that power on our passes, okay? So it's controlled with the inside of our foot, okay? Open and out, so we're then broadening our options, okay? Not just facing one way, so looking at our receiving skills, our body position, so if we're receiving it from a central player and we're playing out wide, okay? Being able to open out, see where that player is, okay? See what space they've got, see where their movement can be, and then where we're receiving the ball from. So then we're making it difficult for the defender to defend then, okay? Because if we're just standing straight on, okay, and not being able to open out, then it's easy to defend. We can just lock on, okay, and it's easy for them to then, okay, he's going to go that way. I know exactly where he can't go, so it's easy for them to focus and say, right, we're cutting off these options. Whereas if we open out, they've got to focus on where's the ball's coming from, okay, as a defender, and where potential movement might be, okay? So it gives us more ability to adapt to different circumstances. And then looking at moving the ball quickly, okay? So we don't want to be keeping hold of the ball for too long, especially when we go into a possession-based game towards the end, okay? So in a game scenario, we can't be dwelling on the ball, okay, and dwelling on a bad first touch. If we have a bad first touch, taking the next one out of our feet and moving on to the ball and playing the next pass. And then, you know, if we're receiving the ball in tight areas, making sure we're looking before we've received it, so being aware, okay, moving the ball on as quick as we can, okay, because that's how we can create space in different areas. So when we're combining, okay, we're combining quickly so then we can find space further up the pitch. In terms of our psychological corner this week, starting off with awareness, so looking at our spatial awareness, okay, being aware of the space around us, being aware of the space that we can penetrate in. So then if we're moving into a possession-based game and there's a lot of players moving towards the ball, can we drop off, okay, as a player to create space for teammates to move into, okay? So we might not be receiving the ball, but it might help us further on in the attack, okay, or further on in keeping possession to then move forward to break the lines. Looking at our decision-making, okay, so if we're receiving the ball and our body's closed, okay, what can we do? We can only play backwards, or can we then play back to where it's come from to then open out, okay? So if at first we haven't made the right decision, we haven't done the right things to receive the ball, can we go back to where it's come from, okay, and then move somewhere else for someone else to receive, okay? So making sure that all the time we're thinking about, right, where's the ball coming from? Where's it going to? Not being, again, dwelling on the ball, making sure that once we've received it, we're getting our head up and we're looking to where the next pass could be and where we can penetrate the opposition. And then finally, having the ability to adapt. So we're working on passing sequences and combinations, but if one part of the drill doesn't go well and someone has a bad touch and it takes them into a different area, or we play a 1-2 and the ball goes a couple of yards away, we need to adapt to that scenario in a game. If it means we miss a pass out, then that's fine, because that's what we do in a game, okay? So it's having that ability to adapt. So if a winger goes to receive it and the ball just misses them, instead of trying playing back to maybe the centre midfielder, which is in the combination, playing up to the winger and just moving the ball on, okay? So in a game, if somebody gives the ball and you have a bad first touch, or the touch takes you in a different direction, you're not going to then turn if somebody's on your back. You're going to play and adapt to that scenario, okay? And then try and keep the ball. And now looking at our physical corner, starting off with intensity and tempo. So to make these combinations work, we've got to be playing at a high intensity and setting the tempo really early on as if it's a game scenario, okay? Because if we're just playing the passes in and then the movements are slow and then our first touch is slow, we're not moving onto the ball quick, it's not realistic, okay? We've got to treat it as if there's a defender on our back, okay? The opposition are closing us down, we're getting pressed, so it's doing all the right things in the technical corner, the tactical corner, and the psychological corner, and then putting in all that intensity, that tempo, and then the speed, what we're looking at as well. So with and without the ball, so speed to play the passes in, speed without the ball to cover that ground quickly, okay? Move to the next area where we're going to. And then finally our ABC, so being able to turn quickly. So starting off close to a mannequin, close to a pole, getting to one side, getting across quickly, okay? So making sure we can shuffle, we can go backwards, okay? We can go sideways, moving forwards, and then change the direction as quick as we can. And then finally, our social corner, so again, communication. So giving players instructions of time, man on, telling them to adapt, okay? So if a coach is telling you to adapt, okay, then the players are more likely to do it. Whereas if nobody says anything, you just think, oh, I have to play that pass because that's what the coach has said. Let the players adapt to scenarios because that's what they do in a game. Just because we're setting up in a certain way doesn't mean that's how it has to be done. It's done the way in terms of we get the ball from our player to the next player, and if the next player means missing somebody out, then that means we miss somebody out. So allowing ownership and responsibility in the session. So let the players know what we're doing, but also taking ownership of the passes, taking responsibility of the session themselves. So feeding them information and then letting them go out and do it themselves, and then giving themselves lots of support and encouragement as well. Okay, now moving into part 3 of this week's session, we're moving into our final passing sequence, focusing on a third man run from midfield. The setup for this part of the session, so in terms of depth and width, okay, obviously we've got cones all over the place. The total depth is going to be 30 yards, okay, so you can try and work it out as 10 from the start here to the first box in here, and then you can try and do another 10 in between the middle box here and then where these poles or the mannequins are, and then from the poles and mannequins up to the end is another 30 yards, and then looking for 20 yards to 30 yards of width, depending on what age group you're working with and how much space you feel like they need to have. You're going to have a little box in the middle which is only going to be a few yards wide. It can just be a 4x4 box, okay, with a cone in the middle as well, which you can now see here. This is for the players to start with. Okay, so how the play is going to start is we're going to have obviously two working at the same time. So we've got this half and this half working, but these two players are going to be going in opposite directions. The poles and the mannequins are there for us to work our passes around, okay, as if we're trying to beat the defenders with our movements. So the ball's going to start here, okay. We're going to play into the midfielder who's going to receive, okay, and take it out of the box, okay, so they're trying to get away from the defender. And then we're going to play into the winger who's going to come off the line, okay, to receive and take the ball in. And then after coming out here, we want this midfielder then to come back through the box, okay, so then they can make their run, okay, so as if it's going to be through midfield. So then this then triggers the run from the highest available player here, who's going to come inside here, and then we're going to play the ball through with from the winger inside. As soon as that ball's travelling, that's when this player here, the central midfielder, is going to make their run across, and then we're going to have the winger coming round after that because they're going to take the place here. And then what we're going to do is a first time pass into space for the central midfielder to run onto to take it into this wide area here, and then we're playing back towards the start. In terms of the movements, okay, before we go through it again, the player who's at the start point here will move up to be the wide player. The wide player will move up, okay, to be the highest available player here, and then the player who's been the highest available player will move into here, and then obviously the player as the central midfielder, and then the central midfielder will go back to the start. Okay, so the movements are a lot more realistic to what we try and do in a game in terms of following passes. Okay, so the winger, we don't want them coming here and then dropping back. We want them following the run. Okay, and there, same with this player here. Once they've made that pass, okay, running into space. So we're creating that space in here for that third man run. So we're going to go through it again, but go through it the opposite side. So we're starting here, okay, we're playing to this player through, okay, so through the line there, taking it out, playing it into the winger, okay, he's going to take the touch in here, okay, and then we're going to get round that cone. This player's going to then time their run to play in as that ball's travelling, okay, this player's going to make their run through, this player in behind, and then this player will have already started moving up to here. And there's that first time pass, okay, splitting, okay, the defenders to run onto, to take it round, and then play back to the start. Okay, so we're looking for the players obviously to play quick, okay, looking at that first touch, that movement to receive the ball, the execution of our passes, so being able to play first time, okay, but also being able to take a touch and then play. So that ability to take the first touch out to play in, and again with this player knowing where we're going to take our first touch, making sure it's firm, and then following our pass with our movements as well. So making sure then, if some of the move does break down, we just adapt to it, move on, and then go to the next point. Okay, so again, looking at our movements again, this player will obviously go back to the start, the winger will move up to here, the player who's been up here is the highest available player, move to central midfield, okay, and then we're going to have the player who's played the pass, the central midfielder, moving back to the start. So you're moving that ball quickly, okay, you can increase the size if you want to as well, depending on what plays you're doing with, and you might want to bring in an extra pass depending on how many players you're actually doing a session with. Okay, but in terms of this setup, you always want to try and get that 30 yards of depth, and then just have a look at the width, depending on what age group you're working with. We will now move into our next animation before moving on to the final part of this week's session. Okay, so moving into the final part of this week's session, we're now moving into a small-sided game based on passing and moving. So we're going to have our 10 players split into 2 groups of 3 in the middle, okay? And then we're going to have 4 floaters on the outside who are going to be looking to keep possession with the team who has got possession in the middle. So we've got a 20 by 20 box with then the players positioned around the outside. So these players can swap if you want to every few minutes with players in the middle, just to easily change the bibs over. Or they can even be on the blues and the yellows, but when they're on the outside, they're just playing as floaters. They can maybe just leave the bibs on the floor just so it doesn't confuse the players. And then obviously if you've got more players, just make the area bigger, okay? And obviously you just have more players in the middle and then the same amount of floaters on the outside, unless you've got a real larger amount where you might put in an extra couple of floaters and have 2 on one side, and you can move around the outside freely and not just on their same line. So what we're looking for the players to do is manoeuvre the ball in the middle, okay, so create some space, but combine with the players on the outside, okay, so that's where they can get their overloads, okay, so we're looking to maybe, play outside, okay, and then we're looking to move to then create space for somebody else to come into, okay, and then we're looking to open out and then maybe play again, okay, outside again, to then move again for one of our other players to come in and then maybe secure the ball in the middle for a little bit before looking to play through. So we're looking to obviously play through the lines, penetrate the opposition, okay, look to play forwards, but also look to secure the ball as well. So if it's becoming a bit too easy for the players to do, you could do that. A constraint is that the outside players, when they receive it, can only play to a player inside, whereas you might be able to, you might start it with, the outside floaters can switch the ball to somebody else on the outside if there's no options, whereas to make it difficult for the players once they've got going and they're getting the hang of it, to increase their movement and to make them be more aware of the space around them. As soon as that ball goes to a player on the outside, it has to go back into the middle, and it could be on a limit of 2 touches. So as soon as that ball's gone out, can we create space for one of our players to come in to receive it? Okay, so we're playing in, open and out. We could have a player on the run, okay, to play into, and then we look to play out again. Okay, so having that ownership in the middle to take control of the ball and then look to play out, and not just using the floaters all the time. Try and combine within themselves, okay, and then look to play out. So we're focusing on that movement to receive the ball, okay, ability to play first time, execution of our passes, and then again, the ability to adapt. So you might be thinking, oh, I'm receiving the ball here and I'm going to play to this player, but then this player closes down. Okay, our first touch goes this way. What's the best option to do? Okay, we're just going to play out to one of the floaters out there, create some movements, and our other player could come in, and then how can we support? Can we make a third run in behind? There it is, and then we play through again. Okay, so we're penetrating the opposition in those areas. Okay, so it's important again to move the ball quickly, set that intensity and the tempo. So again, that's why we're looking to switch the players over so that the levels don't drop once players get tired, because it is quite, there's a lot to endure in there in a small period of time. So making sure that the players are always swapping over. We will now move into our final animation before concluding this week's session. Thanks for watching this week's video. For more content, follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook and TikTok. The links will be in the description below, and we'll see you next week for another Session Sunday.